Hello. So, one of the things we've talked about recently, right, has been that part of the settler colonial project in Israel is to use the IDF in order to systematically back up Israeli settlers whenever they want to intimidate or violate the rights of Palestinians in the West Bank specifically. This also, by the way, used to be kind of how things were done in the Gaza Strip until the settlements in the Gaza Strip were pulled back and dismantled under like the current system that has kind of sealed the West Bank for like the last 15 years, right? But while our focus has mainly been on Gaza, we really need to talk about what's been going on in the West Bank while the bombings in Gaza have continued. You see, while all of the international attention has been focused on Gaza, a lot of the settlers in the West Bank have felt emboldened to attack and target Palestinians in a manner strong enough to force them to flee the region. Now, the New Yorker actually had a really good article on this just a couple days ago called "The Gazification of the West Bank." As the war in Gaza escalates, so too as the forcible displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank is Israel's approach to the two regions linked. This is by Isaac Chotiner. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, right? The settler colonial project in the West Bank has been backed by the IDF, backed by the state. The state is aware of the settler violence and the illegal and unjust encroachment of the settlements in the West Bank, and in fact encourages it. Shortly after October 7th, you saw members of the Knesset handing out guns and weapons to settlers in the West Bank in order to basically say, hey, go wild. You go for it. You know? You see a house you want? Take the house. And to be clear, this is backed up by the organization B'Tselem, which has been reporting on this. They are a human rights organization within Israel, run by Jewish people. And some of the footage coming out here is insane. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Until this week, about 250 people lived in Kirbet Zanuta in the South Hebron Hills, a community of 27 families, including about 100 minors. Not anymore. In recent weeks, armed settlers repeatedly arrived, sometimes with soldiers, beat residents, attacked them with stones, vandalized property, and threatened them serious harm if they didn't leave. This week, the entire community fled. Zanuta is one of 13 West Bank communities forcibly transferred since the war broke out as part of an upsurge in state-backed settler violence. So, one of the things you'll note here is that settlers turn up with soldiers. Like, soldiers come and protect them. So, if they start throwing stones, if they break into a Palestinian's house, the soldiers turn a blind eye. If the Palestinians try to force them out of their house, or throw stones back, or talk in a bit of a too uppity of a way, then the soldiers come in and they beat or kill the Palestinians, right? It's officially covered by the IDF, right? And, if those settlers beat a Palestinian to death, the IDF doesn't intervene. The IDF is only there to protect the settlers, right? So here's the video clip here of the Zatana community, I believe, packing up to leave.
أنا خلقت جوا الخربة هذه، أمي ولدتني في الخربة ما بعرف كيف بس أصعب أيام شفناها لما أجانا المستوطن هذا وصار سكن على الجنب. بعد الحرب ما بدت ب3 أيام ما خلناش ننام ولا ليلة. كل يوم يجي ويجي مع الجيش كمان، يجي في نهار يضرب، وضربنا وضرب أولادنا أكثر من مرة. بقول لك أجانا قبل 4 أيام كسروا القزاز، كسروا كبوا تنكات المي تبعاتنا، وراجموا علينا أحجار دود.
وقالوا اي شيء؟
روحوا ارحلوا من هنا، ما ظلوا الشارع، ما ظل الشارع، يلا روح من هنا، بس روح من هنا.
وامتى قررتوا تروحوا من هون؟
وين بدهم؟ والله ما بعرف، ما بعرف.
You know, like, he's lived there his entire life. His family has been there for generations. Is this H1 or H2 zone Hebron? I don't know. It's and like note in that story, he says one settler. So one Israeli settler shows up, and the army, the IDF, comes and backs up that one settler as he sabotages their water tanks and breaks their windows and like throws stones at them and heaps abuse on them. And the army is there to protect that guy. It is state sanctioned. You know, when the power of the state is used to enable that, it is state sanctioned. And because of that one guy who wants them all to leave, presumably so he can come in and take their house, there's nothing they can do about it. I don't even know what the term for that is. The term is ethnic cleansing, right? Like, the long-term effect of this state-sanctioned violence is the ethnic cleansing of the West Bank, right? Like, you either leave or they kill you. You know? And this has been happening for the last 75 years, you know? And so there's no legal recourse here, because it's state sanctioned. And this is not an isolated incident here. Additionally, like, there is a new trend in Israeli social media of, like, Israeli soldiers raiding, after having raided the West Bank. What they will do is they'll go into the West Bank or into East Jerusalem, and they will just arrest Palestinians. You know, really without cause. You know, oh, you threw a stone at me, even if they didn't. And the trend here is essentially Israeli soldiers who've arrested these Palestinians, then blindfolding them and restraining them in the back of their cars, and then filming their captives. Hey, boiled peanuts. So here's one example of this. Yeah, no, like, dude's holding zip ties in the video, like, and he's wearing an IDF uniform. Like he just arrested these two guys. Yeah. Cool trend. 146,000 likes. Like, and guys, this is just like everyday life. Like, we watched that the video also from B'Tselem of one of the people who works for B'Tselem in the West Bank. Israeli soldiers just come into her house and say, "Oh, well, you know, we know you didn't throw a stone, but someone in your house threw a stone at us, and it was probably one of your sons." And then they just like go through her house and like break her windows and like intimidate her, and like her I think her partner or her husband is like, go, please go inside, like pleading with her to like not make a scene because he's terrified that she's going to get arrested by these people. You know, these armed men who just barge into their house and break their shit. And honestly, like, good on Hassan for calling this out. Fascism will rot you to your core. It will always kill you in the end. You will not break the will of the people. You will lose. So many people responding, well, these are terrorists, don't realize, one, this is the West Bank. These are Palestinians detained for no reason in their own neighborhoods. There's no Hamas. Even if there was Hamas, there are rules to conduct in custody. This breaks them. Yeah. You know? Hassan is 100% correct on that one. But of course, there's even more, right? Because settlers are not just allowed to like come in and like, you know, harass you. They're allowed to literally do anything to you. Like, there are very few limits on what settlers cannot do. If you remember, I told you guys about the wedding of hate. Well, the one of the people who allegedly firebombed the house that led to the burning of that 1-year-old baby and his parents to death. One guy was sentenced for life in prison. But there were multiple attackers. And then, again, settlers celebrated the murder of that 1-year-old child in their weddings. Now, and this is kind of emphasized here. This is again from B'Tselem. Settlers set the fire, but settlers' violence is just one component of Israeli policy aimed at expelling communities from Masfar Yada, state violence. Palestinians know that no one will come to their rescue. The army and police refuse to protect them. Now, this is a video from the 30th. Terrorist settlers set fire to a house in Masfar Yada, destroyed power lines, and attacked and smashed a house in which an elderly woman and her daughter lived. This is not settler violence. This is the state policy of Israel to force us to leave and steal our land. And yeah. Israeli soldiers defend burning the houses of these people. Like, there's nothing they can do. No one's coming to help. And ultimately, like, when that house burns down, like, they'll move someplace else. Because that's all they can do. That's the only option they're left with. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah, this is the Guardian covering the expulsion of the villagers of Zanuda. Now that entire villages such as Zanuda have decided to leave, it is feared that there will be a domino effect in the area, said Nasser Nawaja, a field researcher from the village of Susia for the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem. Yeah, I mean, this is what happened with the Deir Yassem. You know, a massive act of violence, settler colonial violence, caused an entire region to flee. You know, this is what has been happening with relatively little coverage in the West Bank. And keep in mind, these settler colonial attacks didn't just start after October 7th. They've been accelerated since then, but they've been happening for decades now. Absolutely disgusting stuff. I mean, like, when you're seeing a headline like, a new Nakba, settler violence forces Palestinians out of West Bank villages, it's horrific. Zanuda's 150 residents have made a collective decision to leave. Armed settlers, some in reservist army uniforms covering their faces, have begun breaking into their homes at night, beating up adults, destroying and stealing belongings, and terrifying the children. After decades of a desperate fight to cling on to their land, the community has decided they have lost. On Monday, men and women cried as they dismantled their homes and haphazardly packed solar panels, animal feed, and personal belongings onto pickup trucks. The noise of the demolition drowned out the bleeding from the animal pens and threw up dust and debris that tore at the eyes and throat. It is a new Nakba, said Isa Ahmad Baghdad, 71, referring to the expulsion of 700,000 Palestinians in 1948 after the creation of Israel. My family are going to Rafat, but we don't know anyone there. We don't know what to tell the children. And again, these are all videos from different places, right? You know, this is a video from Zanuda. This one is from Kirbet Atuba. The next one here is from Kirbet al-Fakit. This is again from Zanuda. 13 entire communities and hundreds of people from villages have been forcibly displaced since October. The number continues to increase.
The inhabitants are packing up their belongings and leaving their land.
Masafer Yada is in Area C, the sparsely populated 60% of the West Bank under full Israeli control and under threat of annexation. Yeah, I mean, Israeli settlers herding sheep had in effect taken control of 10% of Area C in about 5 years, according to research by Karem Navot, an NGO monitoring settler activity. But in the last year alone, About 110 square kilometers of the West Bank has been annexed by settlers on herding outposts. By way of comparison, the entirety of the built-up Israeli settlement areas constructed since the occupation began in 1967 cover only 80 square kilometers. So, again, in the last year, they have doubled the amount of land that they've annexed from West Bank. It was Hamas hiding in the stuffed animals of the crying children. Yeah, this is systematic ethnic cleansing. You know, even if they aren't killing most of the people in West Bank, they are certainly conducting a campaign to expel them, which is a genocidal action. Yeah, this is almost 100-year-long ethnic cleansing campaign. I don't believe that there has been a time under which the Israeli state has not supported ethnically cleansing Palestinians from both the Gaza Strip and West Bank. Yeah, Palestinian cisterns, solar panels, roads, and buildings here are frequently demolished on the grounds that they do not have building permits, which are nearly impossible to obtain, while surrounding illegal Israeli settlements flourish. Yeah, again, in this area, right? Just to give you an idea of how bullshit this is. The Israeli government is able to issue building permits. However, often homes that have been, Palestinian homes for like the last century or two, don't have building permits because they predate the founding of the state of Israel. And furthermore, they're in West Bank, which is not supposed to be controlled by Israel. However, Israel feels that if you do not have a building permit in the West Bank, they have the ability to just demolish your home summarily. I mean, they're basically forcing them out into the desert to die. Well, yeah. Yeah. Excellent reporting by The Guardian, by the way. We've had hard times in the village since the settlers started the Mitarim farm across the valley 3 years ago. It's been harder to take the sheep out, and the settler young men destroy things like crops or steal sheep or call the army to come and harass us. But now they're coming into our homes. My daughters are terrified, said Amin Hamad al-Hudarat, 41, as he began to cry. I had thought we might need to leave before, but we did not expect it to happen like this. I can't believe that by tomorrow I'm going to leave my home. We're going to camp on the outskirts of Dira, but I don't know what will happen next, what I will do for work, what we will do with the sheep. My whole life is in Zanuda. The community is breaking up. I don't know when I will see my neighbors to chat and tell stories and drink coffee again. After years of legal battles, Israel's Supreme Court ruled last May in favor of the IDF, surprise, that a 3,000-hectare or 7,410-acre area of Masafer Yada would remain a military training zone, known as Firing Zone 918, a ruling illegal under international law and one of the single biggest expulsion decisions since the occupation began. Again, this is one of the common tactics, right? They'll be like, "Oh yeah, the IDF need this area to conduct military training exercises in. Haha. Oh, there happen to be a bunch of villages in there. Haha. Get out of here. Get out of here. Otherwise, you might get shot. Haha." Yeah. No, like this is just annexation under another name, Again, illegal annexation. Since then, the army and Israeli settlers have steadily increased the pressure to try to force the Palestinian community in the firing zone, as well as those living in dozens of villages nearby, to leave. Yeah. Since October 7th, settlers have begun beating and using live fire against activists as well as Palestinians, meaning they're shooting at activists and at Palestinians. They're breaking into their homes and shooting at them. Also, worth keeping in mind that there is not freedom of movement in the West Bank. You can't necessarily just pack up and go to another area of the West Bank very easily because there are checkpoints all over the roads that only apply to Palestinians. Like, if you're Israeli, you can go anywhere you want in the West Bank. If you are Palestinian, you have to use the roads for Palestinians. You have to go through the Palestinian checkpoints. Right? And they open up new checkpoints every year. So new checkpoints have completely isolated villages such as Jimba, making it difficult for residents to leave. Palestinians are held up and questioned by soldiers, sometimes for hours at a time, and dozens of unlicensed cars have been confiscated, forcing residents to use donkeys instead. Meaning that, like, even if you are well off enough to have a car, which is, again, rare for Palestinians, they just take away your car. Oh, you spent money to get that car? Yoink, it's ours now. Under this campaign of attrition, some families have already made the difficult decision to leave, most of them for the nearby town of Yada. During the Guardian's visit to the area a month ago, 2 families in Kirbet ar-Rathim, near the Asel settlement, insisted they would not leave despite the pressure. Today, they have gone. Yeah, so also you can see here that 2023 was already the most violent year for Palestinian deaths in the West Bank in recent memory. You can look back all the way to 2008, according to this graphic compiled by The Guardian. It was already the deadliest year for Palestinians in the West Bank. And yet, since October 7th to October 29th, there have been 121 more deaths, more killings of Palestinians in the West Bank. Yeah, this is why they call it an apartheid regime. You have different rights if you are Palestinian. You have different ability to travel if you are Palestinian. You have no state protection if you are Palestinian. Someone can just show up and be like, your land, this is mine now. And if you want to do something about it, they have the IDF behind them. And if you try and sass them, if you try to fight back, well, the IDF just kills you or arrests you and makes a TikTok about it. Here's another quotation here. Now that entire villages such as Zanuda have decided to leave, it is feared that there will be a domino effect in the area. This is according to Nasser Nawaja from B'Tselem. Settler violence is now worse than ever. Sometimes they are wearing reservist uniforms and we don't know who is the army and who is a settler anymore. The people in Tuba were given a 24-hour ultimatum to leave. I mean, the televangelists are always saying that the rapture is near, or whatever. The people in Tuba were given a 24-hour ultimatum to leave, or the settlers said they would come back and kill them. That was on Saturday. We don't know what will happen next. According to B'Tselem, in the last 3 weeks, 858 Palestinians from 32 different communities and 13 entire communities in total have been forcibly displaced. The numbers increase every day. And again, this article came out like a week ago, so the number is certainly higher now, you know? The international community, notably including the United States, has issued strong statements to the Israeli government that it must take measures to protect Palestinians from attacks by Israeli extremist settlers. These attacks are unacceptable. Those responsible need to be stopped and held accountable. A communique from the State Department in Washington said on Monday. However, Palestinians and Israeli activists say they have little faith in the Israeli authorities. According to UN data from September, in 4 out of 5 communities where residents had filed police complaints about settler violence, only 6% knew of any follow-up. Which, by the way, doesn't indicate that doesn't indicate that 6% had help from the police. It indicates that 6% were contacted following their police report, which may or may not have been helpful. So, like, literally, if you go to the police, there's like a 1 in 20 chance that you're even going to get a response. This is what apartheid looks like. For some, it is too little too late. In Zanuda on Monday, pickup trucks trundled down the dirt track to the main road, full to the brim. They came back empty a few hours later to collect more belongings from the dying community. 3 Israeli soldiers stood next to an armored patrol vehicle at the turnoff to the main road, silently watching. "I don't know when I'll be able to come back again," said Hudarat. "I think I'm saying goodbye to my home forever." This is what we talk about when we talk about Israel being an apartheid state. Effectively, they already control the West Bank. Effectively, they already control Gaza. And the rights that you have in those areas are completely dictated by the Israeli government. The only consistent thing is that if you are a Palestinian in either of those areas, you have less rights than an Israeli. Yeah, Israel's Supreme Court has ruled its human rights don't apply in militarily occupied land, which is why they haven't annexed the entire West Bank. It's why they haven't annexed the Gaza Strip. This legal gray area benefits them. It allows them to pursue this ethnic cleansing campaign. If they were to annex these areas, and that they would have to give them voting rights. They would have to give them human rights. It would change the political makeup of their country. The people in power don't want that. They want the nice, slow, ethnically cleansed land that they can then safely annex that only has Israelis in it. You know? Hey, are you for a one-state solution? I'm in favor of a two-state solution. I think, honestly, a one-state solution would probably be, like, an ideal, but I don't think we're going to get an ideal, you know? I think, honestly, the realistic, pragmatic solution is a two-state solution. Because I think right now, if Israel were to annex the Gaza Strip, if Israel were to annex the West Bank, they would do unspeakable atrocities to ensure that as few Palestinians as possible were included in that annexation. Again, to preserve the current political power structure within Israel. Which I'm clearly not in favor of atrocities being committed on Palestinians, so I think the two-state solution is probably what would have the least amount of bloodshed. There's no realistic way to guarantee equal rights for both peoples in a one-state solution, at least that I've heard of. Yeah. Would a temporary three-state solution work with the U.S. being a forceful peacemaker? I mean, honestly, if the United States shifted its entire policy around Israel to be supportive of Palestinian freedom, to be supportive of, like, autonomy and democratic rule of the Gaza Strip, to be supportive of autonomy and democratic rule in the West Bank, possibly a three-state solution could work. But like without the United States backing, that would never happen, right? And yes, VegCom, the UN Security Council, like UN peacekeeping forces would be preferable to the United States. But if I'm being 100% honest, Israel doesn't give a fuck about the UN Security Council outside of the United States support. Like there's no guaranteeing that without US backing. A problem, there's not much vision for an endgame. Well, the problem there, the reason there's not much vision for an endgame is because Israel deliberately opposes a vision for the endgame, right? Because Israel's endgame involves unspeakable atrocities in the form of like ethnic cleansing and genocide. That's Israel's current endgame right now. An endgame that allows Palestinians to live and remain on their land. An endgame like that involves Israel being willing to come to the table, and that's just not happening right now without the U.S. Pushing them very, very hard. But yeah, I do hope we'll get to a solution in the long term. All I know is that this program of ethnic cleansing, of forcing Palestinians off of land that their families have lived on for hundreds of years, is not sustainable. It's not sustainable in the short term, and in the long term, obviously also not sustainable. The end point is going to come whether or not people have a vision for it. And I hope and pray for the Palestinian people that it is a solution that allows them freedom and happiness. Maybe Saudi Arabia controlling Gaza in the future will be good. I don't think Saudi Arabia controlling anything would be good. I'm pretty against monarchies and authoritarian regimes controlling anything. I would not like Saudi Arabia to control the Gaza Strip. That'd be bad.